Welcome to episode 2 of my Atari 800 repair and restore video, where I'll give you an update on how things have been going.
Okay, just a quick video as I go along before I forget certain things. So, didn't really make a lot of progress on the last video apart from stripping the machine down, sort of learning a bit more about how it's put together, repairing a little bit of damage that happened along the way, which was probably an accident waiting to happen. So, in order to narrow things down, couple of threads, 3 threads really. I mean, I thought I could try replacing the capacitors on this unit, but I'm kind of skeptical as that being a problem that's actually stopping it working. So I'm going to put pause on that one for the moment, as I thought there was more chance if I can sort of switch out major components and see what is wrong. So I have my thoughts now what is wrong from a bit of investigation that I've done. So let me show you this. If I bring out this card, so this is our CPU board. Now if I just bring this way up, so what we have, if we talk about those last 3 large I think they're 40 pin chips, integrated circuits, ICs, what we have at the top there is a CO14806-06. That's the Atari part number. That is our 6502C Sally CPU. The 06 I think is a revision number, so different Ataris might have slightly different revision numbers, and that first part 14806 remains the same. The next chip we have is the CO1488703. That is the POW video antic chip. I think that is sort of, you know, your basic actual video signal itself, not any of the sort of complex graphics processing, which in turn I believe is done by the chip below it, CO14889-03. So that is a CTIA chip, which is the Atari 800's main graphics chip there. The interesting thing here about these chips is that 2 of the 3 are quite easily interchangeable with other models of Ataris for testing. The third one, that's a slightly different story, we'll come to that. Also, the beauty of this board, if we just turn this around, and everything on this Atari, which is really a lovely built machine, these are socketed. So you can see that each of those chips has its own socket that it fits into with the feet there. It is relatively straightforward to remove and switch these in and out if we have replacements, and that is just lovely. Not something that's the case on everything. Certainly working on the 2600 I had to do some desoldering when I was messing around, and the Atari 8-bits, my original Atari 800 XL, I had to do a bit of desoldering. So some of the upgrades I did on those boards, the very first thing that we had to do was desolder an existing chip. For example, the GTIA graphics chip in the 800 XL. When I was upgrading that, I'm putting a Sophia replacement for that chip in, and indeed the earlier revision of the Sophia, that was a Sophia graphics board, which the original chip then piggybacked on top of. But the latest Sophia 2 was literally a full replacement, but it needed a socket to go into. I mean, certainly if you're pulling a chip out in its, desoldering a chip in its entirety, you're going to put a socket back there first and solder that in, as opposed to soldering a fresh new chip. And then you have the ability to remove it, replace the original chip, do what you want to do at a future state if you want to change that machine again. So, as I say, this is excellent. So we've got both sockets there on the main board, sort of various components, a socket, everything. Literally everything on this board worth switching out easily is socketed. So that is good news. But I don't have an Atari 800. However, what we do know is there is some level of compatibility between the chips with this machine and later Ataris. Certainly 2 of those chips, the processor and the antic. So, what we have here, we have our Atari 800 Lender machine. I call this Len, I think, or Lenny. So this has had a bit of a bad life since it's come to me. You know, it's rarely been used to actually pick up and play games or do anything serious on it. It has solely been used as a switch-in board, as a lender machine, where I've had issues with other computers and I've wanted to steal a part, put it into another machine. But it's great that every so often, and certainly with this testing, I can power this machine up and check, yep, everything is still working. All of the components on this board seem to be absolutely functioning. And this is a fully socketed Atari 800XL, which is a lovely thing to have sitting to one side. I was very lucky to find this. I think this cost me about 70 quid on eBay. It might be slightly less. Because I think somebody was unaware of how to power this thing up and test it. So they just put it as parts and spares. I've already used this in an earlier video because I stole the keyboard when I was having problems with my Atari 800XL, my original machine. So that's why there's no top piece on this board at the moment. But we have all these lovely socketed chips. So I've already done this off camera. This is just for illustration purposes so you know the work I've done. I've ultimately switched out some of the chips on this board. Those being the Sally. So you can see there. That on this board is C014806-12. The other revision was a -6. Then we have the Antic, which interestingly on this particular chip, unlike any of the other ones on this board and the other board, it's upside down. So reading that off, that is a C014887-01. That was good. I wasn't even wearing my reading glasses. So that's interesting. The PAL Antic chip, and that's PAL Video as opposed to NTSC. So we're the UK European standard, not the US here. Yeah, C014887-01. That's actually an earlier revision than the one on my 800. So that's all a bit strange. I'm not quite sure I understand that. That might be worth me reading up on, but it is what it is. So we don't have a CTIA in this board. We have a GTIA, which was the chip that evolved for the XL series. So that's a C014889-01. And the CTIA is a C01488903 in the original board. Yeah, it's funny, the revision numbers go down, not up in some of them. That's, I'm wondering if I'm missing something there. But anyway, the point being, from a pin compatibility and basic logic compatibility point of view, to the best of my understanding, the Sally CPU, the PAL Antic are compatible, back with the 800. Now, in terms of that CTIA, if I understand properly, there are more features on the GTIA. However, there is, I believe, a logic and pin compatibility backwards, in terms of you can put a GTIA in an 800, but you can't put a CTIA in an XL and expect it to work properly. Now, please, if I've got that wrong, anyone, please pipe up and correct me, because, yeah, not the sort of mistakes you want to make, but I'm going with those beliefs and assumptions from research I've done. So, what I have done already is I've swapped out the Sally CPU and done two things. I've put that in the 800 and we found no problem. Sorry, no change of the problem. Exactly the same black screen, colours when you change that potentiometer, nothing special. I've also put in the Antic on its own, same thing. And thirdly, I've put in the GTIA on its own instead of CTIA. Same thing, no change in the behaviour. So you'd think that's not really taught me anything whatsoever, but I also went the other way. The 800 chips, the Sally, the Antic, those two have both been inside this machine here and booted successfully. The Atari 800XL has proved that the CPU and the Antic chips are working absolutely fine. But I said, didn't test the CTIA because I don't think that's valid at all. That will never work in an 800XL as far as I am aware. I keep putting that caveat on because although, you know, I've learned a lot of these machines, I'm not an expert and I wouldn't claim to be. This is just a bit of fun. Right, so Although I have done this already, for those who are at all interested, feel free to skip. Removing chips, removing integrated circuits. How do you go about doing that? Well, there's a lot of chip removal tools you can buy. And yeah, absolutely, if you want to get one of those, might cost you a bit, like 10-15 quid, something like that. That's your best way of removing a chip, so you're getting equal pressure around all sides of that IC as you lift it, so you're avoiding bending pins. I haven't got one of those, but you know, I've kind of found my own method of doing it, which has been successful, and I've not managed to damage anything. Probably removed a dozen or so chips since I've been working on these Ataris. So in one of my soldering kits I bought, there was this particular set of tweezers there, and you see the way that is angled is really quite useful. So which way round we're going to illustrate this with? I'm going to leave the chips in the board on the 800. We're going to mess with that as little as possible, and just for illustrative purposes, we're going to mess with our donor machine, our lender machine here. What I have been doing is getting this tool like this, placing it just so the pointed ends are just under the top of the legs on one side of the board, and you can see you can push that in a little bit, you can give it a little jiggle, and then just a tiny little sort of bit of motion backwards, and that's lifted slightly. I don't want to lift that much because I'm not able to give equal pressure on either side, but I can certainly do it in stages. So that's just slightly lifted on the left. So I then go back to the right hand side here, place that underneath, and the same thing, just jiggle that so it goes in, and I'm just gonna slightly lift that, and there we go. This is almost loose, this one. I can get further in now. Yeah, this has literally come off. There we go. That was easy. So it was a case of taking that out and then grabbing the board, the 800 CPU board, which is, just for completeness, CO15500 Rev 5 board. So looking back at that again, the Sally is the top one there. So it was literally just a case of doing the same thing and switching that chip in. All done off camera, nothing really to see there, but we've learned something. We've learned it's got a good processor, it's got a good antic. CTIA, not so sure, 100%, but with a GTIA in the place, no difference. So there's nothing to make us believe that the GTIA is a problem. So I think that's really successful. We've learned a lot there. So what do we think is wrong with this machine? Could it be to do with the power? It could be. There could be something strange going on there, but I don't really think that is my main culprit. I'm just going to put this chip back in there. Equal pressure all around, just making sure I can feel none of the pins are out of place. When I'm happy, it's a nice, you feel it, you feel the sort of tension, the equal pressure that you have to put on either side, and that nice little noise there that the chip's gone back in properly. Anyway, yeah, so what do I think's wrong? Power, unlikely. Can change the caps later, probably will change the caps later, but I'm kind of thinking now it might be after we've resolved the fault. There's confidence for you. We are going to resolve the fault. Do you know what I think this is? If I zoom out here, from looking around various logs of people fixing machines, one person mentioned this board, which is our personality board, our 10K Rom Board, the CO12889. I think this could be the issue because somebody described they had a bad Rom board, or one of the chips on this board was bad. They switched out the whole board, and the black screen that they were seeing when they had this board in sort of described the problem, very similar to what I'm seeing here. That went away. So I don't have one of these. All of these chips, there's nothing that's comparable on the XL. So what to do. I have put out a little plea on Atari Age for a bit of assistance. A very kind gentleman on there did actually offer he had some spares he might be able to lend me. He particularly said the 40-pin ICs were like gold dust, he wouldn't be able to lend them. Well, that's great because I think I've ruled some of those out already. It'd be excellent if we can get some of this help. However, we haven't entered into further dialogue yet, and of course that would be a favour, that would be very nice of him. But in having a look around, I've spotted on eBay, relatively cheaply, a said to be working 10k ROM card. It delivered will be about £15. I'm prepared to put that further investment into this machine, so that has been ordered. And I have a reasonable level of confidence. Let's see that bite me in the butt. I have a reasonable level of confidence that that may well be the major fault on this machine. We switch that one in, we might see some life. If that is the case, we'll just sort of carefully test everything, make sure everything is good for the sort of software that should work within the 48k RAM of this machine. And then we'll think about, right, do we do the recap just to get that out the way while we got it all open? Probably would do that. And after that, what we're looking at is purely cosmetics for this machine. So, yeah, sounding good to me. Got a reasonable level of confidence now that we're going to get this thing fixed. And that is the latest update. I will probably wait until I've got further to put this bit of video out, but just recording this on a lovely rainy Wednesday before I forget what I've done so far and forget to tell you guys on the next video. Oh, and in the vein of forgetting to tell you things, let's be honest here. Blu-Tack wasn't cutting it with the case switch. That was another issue that we had. I'm just going to talk about that briefly here. I'm just going to pull up the power board very carefully there. You know, looking at this, I noticed there is a hell of a lot of corrosion, and actually a piece of metal kind of started to come off. Bit of rusty metal came off as I was looking at that. I'm just not happy that that switch was doing a lot. I did kind of buzz that out with a multimeter and I wasn't getting consistent continuity, so I'm thinking that's going to be a pain. I'm testing the machine, trying to work out if there is an issue, and this little thing is not actually connecting. Yeah, that's just going to annoy me. So what I've done is a semi-temporary may well become permanent solder job there between those 2 points. There's a little bit of you know, they're not that close together to flow the solder between the two, so there's a small piece from a wire there soldered between those 2 points, and that keeps that continuity, makes the Atari think that the case on the cartridge bay is always closed. So that's one little thing I've done there extra that I didn't mention on the other video. And furthermore, we're testing this on a monitor. I'm reasonably confident that the RF circuitry, the analog RF, is not required to make the composite video signal come out of this in any which way. And I have encountered in the past on XLs that if you have a problem with your RF, if you have something shorted out, what have you, it can actually cause you bigger issues. So that was very easy to remove, no desoldering there. There's just a couple of screws, and that contact there sits nicely on top of that contact there. So to put that back, it's just a slot in. So taking that out was no big deal. So we put that to one side. And again, it's a testament to this machine. This is such an easy machine to work on in terms of modularity, and it's built like a tank. You know, it's a joy to work on. Would be even more of a joy to work on if we had the components to swap in easily, but we'll get there, don't you worry. Okay, so that's the current state of my Atari 800, and hopefully I'm hoping this will be part of a slightly longer video where we actually show a bit more progress, but at least you can see you know, I'm happy with my troubleshooting at this stage, and we've learned things without actually fixing the machine. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, time for some video on the bench. So here we've got some parts on the right that I've procured. Now, first of all, this was an eBay find, which is an Atari Rom Board. Brilliant. So that is going to be completely working. You can see it's cased there, but ultimately the inside of the case looks, funnily almost identical to the Rom board. So I don't pick up the wrong one here. No, here it is. So it would look very similar to that inside. So I suspected that board might be a problem due to another YouTube video that I saw where somebody was able to replace one of these boards and bring an Atari back to life with a very similar display fault. Hoping that would be the sort of Occam's razor solution, but yeah, I've swapped it in already. No change. So good news, we have a spare Atari Rom board. I mean, maybe that'll be useful in the future. I can't really argue about that, as certainly there wasn't too many out there when I was looking. Certainly not at a reasonable price unless you go to somewhere like Best Electronics in the US, navigate the complex order process and pay a lot of shipping. So what to do? Lots of other things ruled out, but I think really it wouldn't really hurt to give this machine a fresh set of capacitors. So you can see there, I have a few bags from a UK electronic component vendor. Got a few too many of certain ones. You can only order them in minimum quantities, but hopefully I've got everything I need there to change. Oh, how many capacitors are we talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 capacitors that I can see listed. That's 8 on the power supply board and 2 on the PCB. The 2 on the PCB are C179 and C199. They're both, what are they, 10 microfarad 16 volt capacitors. So first of all, I think that's these. Yeah, there we go. 10 microfarad, 16 volts. So that's the ones we're going to use first. So let's put them there. Move the other ones to one side. Let's get them right to one side because we're going to be soldering in a moment. So we've got to find that on the board. I've already had a little look. The first one, C179. That hopefully is focusing. That is that guy there. And if I turn the board over, those, as far as I can tell, the connection points, and that's very nicely labelled there with a positive symbol because clearly we have to get these the right way round. Let's check if that follows. Negative is high, yep, which is the top pin there, so positive is the other side. Yeah, these are nicely marked there. Let's just have a quick look at one of these capacitors and make sure the markings are just as clear. I think that is the negative side. Okay, so in a moment we're going to solder that in once I've double checked that point. Okay, so double checking my knowledge again. So there is a plus there, you can barely see it, but this side of the capacitor, the stripe, denotes negative. That's clear in a couple of things I just checked, so we're not going to make that mistake. Please don't anyone make that mistake because these electrolytic capacitors are polarized, so if you connect them the wrong way they may have a tendency to explode. Don't want to do them on any of them, especially not the bigger ones. Right, okay, so C179, we know exactly where that is on the other side of the board. This should be quite a straightforward removal. If I just put something to lean that against. Okay, how's this heating up? Nicely. Probably do with a new tip on that at some point soon. But not today. Okay, so we know where we are on the board. Warm these ancient solder connections up. Holding the capacitor in my left hand.
Oh, I felt a little move there. Don't want to obviously heat this up too much, don't want to damage the board. Also, I can feel the heat because I'm holding capacitor in my left hand. Not quite going to come out like that, I don't think. Ow. Right. I've got my purchase on that. Tip of this soldering iron is not very good at all. You have to turn it round to make sure. There we go, that's come out. I was about to say, just turning it around to make sure we get the hot parts. So, there's this little guy. There's probably nothing wrong with it, but hey. That's gone. Put that in a little tub of 800 parts. Quite clean around that solder joint, but let's see what we can do to make it clean. Let's cut off some of this older wick. Using my bearings on the board, there we go. So trying to just lift some of that old solder onto the wick to prepare the board for the replacement capacitor. See daylight through that hole. Check the other side in a minute. Tiny scorch mark there, I hope that wasn't me. Right, let's go over the other side. No, that is nice and clean. Just come in with some isopropyl as well. Looking at that trace there, I think it's fine. While I'm here, just give it a little double check. Yeah, it's nothing, that's fine. Don't know where the other end of the positive goes. Yeah, that trace kind of disappears under these resistors. But yeah, anyway, right. So, remove the capacitor and we have continuity coming. Oh no, sorry. Oh yeah, and we already checked the other one on the other side. Right. So positive is shown on the left-hand side here. Right-hand side there. Lower position on both. Absolutely no chance we're going to get this wrong. We've got the negative on the right, so we need to go in. If I can just flow the solder just a little bit, let's put that underneath, and go in from the top on the positive side. Might get a bit warm if I'm there for too long, so let's see if we can get hold of that. It's going to be awkward. In she goes. Tease that other one round before I lose. It's a fair bit lower. Yep, it's going down, it's going down. We're in. Yeah, that's a bit. I wonder if I could just warm it up from underneath and get it a little bit lower. Yeah, it's moving. A bit more. Don't think we're going to get much lower than that because of the distance between the feet is very slight. I don't think we can see that on camera that easily, but yeah, that's as low as it's going to go. So on this side, so that's lead-free solder. On these older boards I normally use this, which is 40% lead, more akin to the solder on there. So at this point, so we're using lead solder. You might hear a bit of background noise because I'm opening the door to make sure we've got plenty of ventilation. Probably should have done that as I was soldering off the board. There's only tiny amounts coming out of there. Turn off my multimeter. So I'm just trying to locate a mask. Right, let's try and finish this one off. Checking that we haven't hit those together. No, absolutely fine. Happy with that. Right, let's come in and give these guys a little haircut. That's the first one done. As it doesn't take very long, I am going to power back between each session, obviously very loosely, so let's just have a look. Okay, no difference whatsoever. Next one is C199, another 10 microfarad. I'm just hunting for C199. It is hiding. That guy. So I'm going to have to take this out, which is not a problem. There's just some clips on that. That's fine. Okay. Again, nicely identified. There's actually two pads there, which I would imagine you have a shorter. You could go into either of those if you had a slightly shorter capacitor, but we'll try and. We've got long legs, so we should be able to get into that fine. Plus there, negative there. Yeah, that's really easy to find on the edge of the board, and then well, that's the one that's actually pinned in. That's the one we're coming out. Okay. Something up under the legs of it. Yeah, I'm going to put some tweezers under that leg and try and tease it out. Oh, it needs to be a bit closer. Oh, straight out. There we go. It's gone. And the same's gone. That was easy. Go. Okay, so positive is the big guy. So this is going to sit differently to the one it's replacing. So let's try and do something ingenious with the feet. Do one at a time here. Negative again, it's the smaller pin and it's the stripe. Press that in just a little bit. Okay, that looks lovely. See, that might not be in the best of directions. The cartridge case just clears that. But it's okay, it is clearing it, that's the main thing. I'm not going to start bending it around. Okay. Guess what? Nothing. Get colours when we go past the sweet spot on the potentiometer. That's about it. Same as ever. Oh, yikes. Okay, I believe we're on to power board. Okay, so direction wise, the stripe, the negative is pointing to that pin and positive is there. So that makes sense. Okay, flash and black. Oh, what the? Oh yeah, same. It just seems harder to get the flashy colours. Is that a good sign? Is it a change? Don't know. Okay, it's not happening, is it? Right. 25 volts, 47 U microfarads. So, where these belong, the 25 volt ones, are 207 and 208. What the hell? They're rated 16, these existing ones. Bloody hell. 25 volts rated. I mean, maybe bigger is better. Right, have we got the actual ones? 4716. We have. No, that's 470. No, we haven't, I don't think. That's your 2216s that we need for elsewhere. Well, it is what it is. I've put some 25 volt ones in because I haven't got anything else apart from the originals. But these, I don't know, the fact these are large old capacitors, these, in my mind, I've got more of a chance of failing. These ones are smaller. Let's go for it. What's the worst that can happen? They're rated higher. Okay, might get a couple more of these changed in this session if we're lucky. Probably power on test after all of them now.
Okay, just a very quick video here, tell you the stage we're at. Sorry about the mess behind there. Did clear down, but it's got a lot of things out again to work on various issues. Atari 800, I tried so many things, ruled out so many issues, which will be documented within this video, what I've looked at. Hopefully none of the things that I've done have made a problem different or worse. Certainly the graphical output or lack of it is similar effect everything that I've done, so don't think I've made anything any worse as far as I'm aware. Check the Atari service manual and follow the sections that are at the initial parts telling you to check the voltages at various points on the power board. This is where I'm getting starting to get out of my depth in my electronics knowledge, you know, what I'm reading and why I should be reading it at the various points. But I wasn't entirely happy with the level of the voltages coming out of a couple of the voltage regulators, also coupled with an article that I probably lost now, but something I read saying it was a very common fault on the power board that these regulators can go bad. I mean, I was reading a voltage, just not what was being seen in the service manuals. So for in for a penny, in for a pound, it can't hurt to replace both of the voltage regulators. So just received a package from a UK electrical component supplier, and we have a couple of voltage regulators here. I can document what I bought later, but there's that was the 5-volt one, and there is a 12-volt one in there. Hopefully that should be a simple drop-in, and I really hope that that is it, but I don't think it's going to be, because I've tried so many things that haven't worked. So it would be absolutely amazing if that fixes it, but it's the last thing that I'm going to do in this section. That's where I will draw a line. If this does not fix the Atari, then we will take stock. We will post the video. I'll post some documentation, textual documentation of what I've done, and I may well ask questions on various people on the Atari Age forum, which is a wonderful place to discuss issues with retro Atari equipment. And also one kind gentleman had already offered to assist me potentially in helping to diagnose the fault, and even I believe he offered to lend some components that he may have. So those are my options going forward. Beyond that, you know, I want to take this to its logical conclusion, I said previous times, but really I'm feeling this is on its last legs. Beyond that additional assistance, if that doesn't bear fruit, it's ultimately going to be a case of trying to commission someone to complete this work.
So let's take a look, make sure we think we have the right components. So it's quite clear to see that's the 5-volt power regulator there, and that's the 12-volt one there. So it's quite easy to see what we're replacing. These, if I've done the correct research, should be pin compatible components. You can even get into the things here. There is a 12 in that part number on the left, which is the 12-volt one, and there is a 5 in the part number there. So then obviously part numbers differ, modern equivalent parts. I think we're okay there. Right, okay. That's the 12-volt, that's the 5-volt. Perfect. Size wise, it should be pin compatible. This should be quite straightforward, so we've got to unscrew that there. 3 points, yeah, they're all aligned. This is straightforward.
It's an easy switch, and hopefully if we're very careful there'll be no issues if we have to put the original component back. Okay, time to watch some more of my unskilled soldering work, which honestly looks much better at this speed. So here we go, I'm starting to try and desolder the 3 pins, and initially pulling that out with my fingers. Gets quite hot when you do that though, so you can't hold on to it for long. This actually turned into quite a battle getting this out. I had to hold on to it with a cloth there. It took a little bit longer than expected.
You really don't want to die, do you? Oh. It's almost there. Oh, look at that. That was a toughie to get rid of. Okay. Tidy up. Absolute daylight through those holes. Perfect removal finally. See the other side. Clean with alcohol, that's all that's needed there. I think we're ready. Go in here. There we go, slips in nicely. We can position it with the bolts prior to the soldering to keep it firmly in place. That's ideal. And those pins sit out quite a lot, but you know, we'll double check later that they're not going to shorten anything, but I don't really want to trim them if I can avoid having to. I think that's spot on. Right, okay. Right, well that's one. I think we should do both at the same time, to be honest. Here's the 12. Of course, we don't expect this to be any easier to remove, do we? Let's find out. Oh. Well, certainly the nut and bolt are easier to access on this one. Right, okay, so we'll bend that forward. Seems significantly more paste on this one, but maybe the feet are not quite so bad if we're lucky here. Let's get that out of the way. Right. Got purchase, heat, that moved straight away. Middle not so much, but ow, now it's hot. And that, all 3 legs moved a little bit, that's a good start. Right, starting on this end again. That. Gonna need to get a purchase on it through a cloth, I think, so I can tug it without singeing my fingers. Right, so I'm going to go at this angle. Movement. Feel it just wiggling about, pushing the nibber right into the holes now, and there it is. That one was easier. There's the little guy. Okay, pretty solid connections, if I do say so myself. Now, how quickly can we carefully test this now? I'm going to start recording on the Atari. I'm going to start it now. That was for sync. Not that we're expecting anything spectacularly different, but you never know. Okay, we're in. We're powered off. Now I saw a flicker on the Atari screen there, and I'm going to turn it on now. Black screen on the OBS Studio. Let's just jiggle this. And we're getting the same colour effect. As I just hit the sweet spot occasionally, whatever that is, then we get that red there, red and green. Now, what is that? I mean, oh, it's gone again. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that level. Right, what else can we check? Because this might turn into the final recap video, because I'm really not sure what else we can do. Now, we can work without the case fully on because we have shorted the connections on the case switch. So that's permanent. So we can test an additional couple of things here. I'm going to put the speaker on. And here is the top part of the case. I'm going to carefully rest that there. Let's see, there's no wires that got tugged away. Power on the wall. Power on the Atari. Give it a moment to load the memo pad, which I don't think is actually loading, and then press some keys. Nothing. Can't press those ones, they're on the motherboard. You can press them here though. Oh, that's interesting. Reset. No, I don't think that's actually changing anything. Keyboard's not doing anything, not making any sound. Now it's rather precarious. I'm going to turn that off. Let's remove this keyboard very carefully now. Hands are shaking here, so I don't want to break anything. Oh. Yeah, we've got a problem there with the pin. Yeah, okay, right, that's not the issue though. We had no sound there when we were pressing the keyboard. We'll turn back on again. I'm just going to turn the volume up on my mixer so it goes out the loudspeaker. If there's any audio coming from the output of the Atari, I don't think so. And the reset doesn't do anything. And this is where we are. Let's try and do a recap piece on the fly. What have we done? If I miss anything, I'll fill in the gaps later. But we have just replaced two power regulators. 5 volt and 12 volt. Which way around? I think that's 5, I think that's 12. That didn't do anything. We still have the same black screen with red little effects when we're adjusting this potentiometer. So that's what we're getting every time, so I won't need to keep repeating that. Prior to that, we replaced all the capacitors. These two here, these two here, these two here, these two here. Also this one here. Was it also this one here? I believe so. All documented. Small concern over these. Again, I'll check my notes, but the guide I was using for the capacitors matched on every other type apart from these two, where I believe it said 25 volts. I believe the originals were 16 volts. So they're higher rated. Hopefully that's okay. 4700 microfarad, 25 volt. I believe they were supposed to be 16, but I'll check that. Hopefully that is not material. Maybe if someone thinks it is, let me know. But again, You know, what could we do about that? We could probably just buy new components if we needed to get the right ones. I don't know if we'd really want to switch back to the originals, because look, the feet were obviously snipped when these were first installed underneath, so very tiny feet. That would be a challenge. It could, you know, I could make it work because they're obviously correctly aligned with the holes, but yeah, not ideal. But yeah, those were the 16-volt ones that came out. Okay, going back even further, what else have we done? We had to repair where this 4-wire connector had become unsoldered from the board. Don't think that's made anything different or worse. Checked all the connections, no shorts, what have you. That seems fine. We have certainly reseated every IC. Some of the ICs we have validated by switching out and trying in an Atari 800 XL, and they proved to successfully work. Off the top of my head, that included the PIA, Pokey, the Sally processor, took out the CTIA and replaced with a GTIA, which I believe is pin compatible in that direction. Couldn't validate the CTIA in the Atari because the later XL takes the GTIA. I believe that's all correct what I've said there. So there's still a chance that the CTIA is bad because I haven't been able to validate that chip. It really depends on whether that is a valid statement that the GTIA from the XL would be okay to run in this, obviously not using its full functionality. Am I correct in what I've researched on that? Please let me know if I'm wrong. Oh, the Antic as well, that was the other one. Hex buffer, which I believe is somewhere around here, validated in an XL, switched the XL one back in here. That's not done anything. Feels like we've done a lot here, and we're still in the same position with a dead Atari 800, which is disappointing. Oh yeah, sorry, Rom Board, of course. You know, I got a new one of those. I have it right here. You know, while we're here, I'm still on. Switch off from the wall, switch off from there. You know, it could always be combinations of faults. So this is all perfectly valid testing we're doing on the fly here. So let's put this one in instead. Oh, does that even fit? Whoa, oh wow. I see. Jesus, the size of that is knocking on this. Oh my god. So yeah, as I was pressing the card in, it was jiggling on it. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. False alarm, the feet are in. Is it worth continuity checking that while we're here? Of course it is. So between the feet of that and the second pin, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Nothing to be alarmed about. We just need to make sure that is out of the way as we try and put this additional ROM card in. So this is the... There we go. Now we know why that wasn't sitting properly. Lovely. Okay, so all other things that we've previously mentioned, the recap, the change of the power regulators, all the chip swappery. This is just a different ROM card. I find it really interesting that as I turn the power on the wall there, I get a USB disconnect from my PC, but this is not powering anything connected to my PC. Hope I don't have mains power issues in this room, but nothing seems to have disconnected on the PC. Anyway, I digress. Just take a breath. Okay, so we have just swapped the ROM card. That is the original. That's the replacement, which is maybe from an early Atari before they decided to abandon these casings. So with everything else we've changed, does a different ROM make any difference? No, exactly the same. Let's just adjust this. We're getting lots more colours actually. That's interesting. If I reset, no effect there. It's not taking any input. Okay, it just seems subtly different sometimes. This time I have a black bar down the middle and a bit of a more colourful effect. which I am recording separately, so I'll try and include this footage together. Okay. How many recaps? We've recapped that we've recapped. We've recapped that we've changed the regulators. We've recapped that there's more recaps there. There's a Rom Board that's changed. To the best of our awareness, there's no functional difference between the two. They both work 100% as far as we know, unless someone lied and that one's broken. But yeah, no changing those. Rom boards, these guys, 3, exactly the same. So, I mean, we might be super unlucky that each one of these 3 has bad RAM. I've got no external way of testing that because it's different RAM chips than run on the XL, much smaller amounts of RAM, 16K boards each. What I have attempted is powering the machine up with just one on its own, which I believe is perfectly valid and would boot it. That would it not make it more like a 400 with the lesser amount of memory? But I've tried each of these cards booting on its own with there goes the USB again, don't know what that is, but ultimately, and it came back again, so you know. So unless we're super unlucky and all 3 of those are bad, then we think all 3 are good, or that's the assumption that we go with. I say all of the chips, all the ICs have been reseated in every one of these boards. So this is very frustrating, but I think we're going to have to call it a day here for this video. What's next for this Atari 800? I'm not entirely sure. I don't know where to look. I'm reluctant to spend a huge amount, as in I have seen whole replacement. I believe I've seen both whole main boards and power boards available on eBay from the States. That would be quite expensive. I think maybe instead of privately, I could maybe go to Best Electronics and do the same. That's a major component, a major part of the system to change. I'd really like to have some idea of what is the problem before I replace something major, because clearly, you know, it's a 50-50 chance. Do you replace the main board or do you replace the power board? If you don't understand the problem, you've got a 50-50 chance of getting it right. And if you get it wrong and you buy the other one, you know, you pretty much replace the entire machine. Apart from ICs, of course, you would transplant all the ICs away from this board to that one if it wasn't fully populated what you were buying. I'm sure it would have at least like 40 pin chips would have been stolen out of it if you're buying a second-hand one, at the very least. Okay, so I'm really speculating here. You know, what is next? I really would love some advice from someone expert on where to focus to avoid said major expense of replacing main board or power board. Okay, so these are my options, lots of them. I'm going to draw it to a close there because I could always re-narrate this. I don't think there's anything I need to point out here. Yeah, we're done. I do not know what to do next with this Atari. Powering off. So apologies for the disappointing end to this video and a pause to this project. There will be further updates. Here are some of my repair notes if you wish to peruse them. But for now, we're packing this machine up. You'll have to subscribe to my channel. Please do if you want to see further updates on this project or further of my videos. This is the TJ Games channel, signing off for now.